Hello, everyone. This is day 4 of reading every day for a whole year to improve my speaking abilities and my literacy in general. Thank you. Okay, let's see, where was I? No. No, I know I was pretty far in here. I'll start. I'll start with habits. Or genius. Yeah, I'll start here. Okay, here we go. 30 minutes, starting now. And go. To a genius, the creative inner state is almost always naturally available, in highest and fullest degree. The greater the simplicity with which one approaches a genius, the more accessible and intelligible he becomes. A genius must be simple. That is one of his greatest merits. Gesture. A gesture made for its own sake has no place on the stage. We have no use for ballet methods, for theatrical poses or gestures which are superficial in origin. They cannot convey the life of a human spirit. We would do better to adapt these theatrical conventions, poses, gestures to the execution of some live object, to the expression of some inner experience. Then a gesture ceases to be merely a gesture, and is converted into a genuine, meaningful, and purposeful action. Superfluous gestures are the same as trash, dirt, spots. Let every actor above all hold his gestures in check to the extent that he controls them and not they them. Not they him. A gesture by itself which does not carry out some action germane to a role has no purpose on the stage, except in a few rare instances where it is related to a character part. No conventional gesture can convey the inner life of a role, nor promote its through line of action. For that purpose, movements which create physical activity are needed. On the stage, I reject any unmotivated gesture. I accept only action, movement. Given circumstances. This expression means the story of the play, the facts, events, epoch, time, and place of the action, conditions of life, the actors and directors' interpretation, the mise en scene, the production, the sets, the costumes, properties, lighting, and sound effects, all the circumstances that are given to an actor to take into account as he creates his role. The magic if is the starting point, the given circumstances, the development. Grotesque. You say Pushkin must be played quite differently, more fully. The way he wrote, otherwise the images he created tend to become shallow to the point of turning into simple national types of historic figures, and therefore Pushkin can be presented only in tragic grotesque style, as Moliere can be in tragicomic grotesque. Now we shall examine the grotesque only from your point of view. Did you ever in your life see this kind of grotesque? I saw one example of it. It was the Othello of Salvini, and I also saw a comic grotesque, or, to be exact, actors capable of creating it. These were Zivotny and Varlamov, genuine grotesque. It is a vivid and bold externalization, based on such tremendous, all-embracing inner content that reaches the limits of exaggeration. An actor must not only experience human passions in all their universal component elements, he must over and above this condense them and produce a manifestation of them so vivid, so irresistible in its expressiveness, so audacious, so bold that it borders on the burlesque. The grotesque may not be unintelligible, and there can be no question mark placed after it. The grotesque must be definite and clear to the point of braziness. It would be too bad if any spectator, after seeing your grotesque, should ask, "Tell me, please, what is the meaning of those 4 cooked eyebrows and the black triangle on the cheek of Pushkin's Miser Knight or Salieri?" It would be too bad if, after that, you had to explain, Well, you see, the artist wanted to picture a sharp eye, and since symmetry is soothing, he introduced that slant. There lies the grave of the grotesque. It dies, and in its place is born a simple riddle, as silly and naive as the ones they published in the illustrated magazines. What what do I care how many eyebrows or noses an actor has? Let him have 4 eyebrows, 2 noses, a dozen eyes. But they must be justified by the fact that the actor's inner content is so great that 2 eyebrows, 1 nose, 2 eyes are not enough for him to project all of his immense spiritual content. But if the 4 eyebrows are not based on necessity, if they have no justifiable basis, such grotesque makes the actor smaller. It does not inflate his little being. To inflate something which is non-existent, to inflate emptiness, that makes me think of blowing soap bubbles. When the form is greater and more powerful than the actual being, that is grotesque. Yet it is worthwhile breaking our hearts about something which, alas, practically does not exist, something we only see in the rarest exceptional instances in our art. To tell the truth, have you ever seen a stage creation of all-embracing content that imperatively called for the enlarged and exaggerated form of the grotesque in which to be expressed? How often one does see a great blown-up form inflated like a soap bubble, to the point of external make-believe grotesque, but completely lacking in all content. You must realize that this is just a pie with nothing inside, a bottle out of wine, a body without a soul. Such grotesque without spiritual motive or content is mere affectuation. The pseudo-grotesque is the worst, and the genuine grotesque is the best kind of art. The pseudo-grotesque is not characterization, and the genuine grotesque is greater than simple characterization. It is not a partial art, but a whole art carried to the point of all-embracing, universal manifestation of all things created. The true grotesque is the ideal of our theater creativity. Habits. Habit is a two-edged sword. It can be a great harm when badly used on the stage, and be of great value when proper advantage is taken of it. It is essential to establish the right creative state by forming trained habits. The unfortunate and dangerous part is that habits can be developed in the wrong direction. The more often an actor appears on the stage and acts in theatrical, untrue way and not according to the true dictates of his nature, the farther he will move away from the goal we seek to achieve. It is essential to work, step by step, when you are leaning to establish trained habits. Piecemeal, the system enters the actor until it becomes incorporated by his own second nature. The difficult should become habitual, the habitual easy, the easy beautiful. Here and now. It is extremely important to an actor's creative state to feel what we call I am. I exist here and now. I exist here and now as part of the life of a play on the stage, to help an actor find himself in his role and the role in himself. Let him decide sincerely how to answer the question, what would I do here and now if in real life I had to act under circumstances analogous to those which my part is set? High tension acting. Different actors have different conceptions of effect through speech. Some of them try to find it in a physical tension. They clench their fists, they heave, make themselves shake from head to foot, all for the sake of impressing the public. Under that method, the voice is pressed out in a horizontal line. This is what we call high-tension acting. Actually, it does not produce volume. It leads only to shouting, to hoarseness with narrowed vocal range. Homework. For an actor, more than an artist in other fields, work at home is indispensable. Whereas a singer has to be concerned only with his voice and breathing, a dancer with his physical apparatus, and a pianist with his hands, or a wind instrumentalist with his breathing and lip technique, an actor is responsible at one and the same time for his arms, his legs, his eyes, his face, and the plasticity of his whole body, his rhythm, his motion, and all the program of our activities here in school. These exercises go on through our lives as artists. The great majority of actors are convinced that they need to work only at rehearsals, and that at home they can enjoy their leisure. But this is not so. In rehearsals, an actor merely classifies the work he should be doing at home. At home, an actor should do work on himself to correct shortcomings which have been pointed to him by his instructor. I am. In our theater parlance, this means that I have put myself into the very center of imaginary circumstances, that I exist at the heart of an imaginary life, in a world of imaginary things, and that I am on the point of going into action on my own responsibility. As a participant, you cannot see yourself, but only what surrounds you. You react with your inner nature, so what is going on as truly as in real life. If you sense the truth in a play subconsciously, your faith in it will naturally follow. In the state of I am, the smallest action or sensation, the slightest technical means, can acquire deep significance, only if it is pushed to its limits of possibility, to the boundary of human truth. Faith in the sense of I am. When this point is reached, your whole spiritual and physical makeup will function normally. Ideal artist. Imagine some ideal artist who has decided to devote himself to a single, large purpose in life, to elevate and entertain the public by a high form of art, to expound the hidden spiritual beauties in the writings of poetic geniuses. His whole life will be consecrated to the high cultural mission. To this high cultural mission. Another type of artist may use his personal success to convey his own ideas and feelings to the masses. Great people may have a variety of high purposes. In their case, the super objective of any production will be merely a step in the fulfillment of important life purpose, a supreme objective. Imaginary objects. When you reach the point of playing Hamlet, reading a way through his intricate psychology to the moment when he kills the king, it will be important for you to have a life-size sword in your hand. If you lack one, will you be unable to finish your performance? You can kill the king without a sword, and you can light a fire without matches. What needs to burn is your imagination. In communion with imaginary, unreal, non-existent objects such as apparition, some people try to delude themselves into thinking that they really see it. They exhaust all of their energy and attention on such an effort, but an experienced actor knows that the point does not lie in the apparition itself, but an inner relation to it. Therefore, he tries to give an honest answer to his own question. What should I do if a ghost appeared before me? Imagination. Imagination creates things that can be or can happen. Every moment you make on the stage, every word you speak, is the result of the right life of your imagination. The creative process starts with the imaginative invention of a poet, a writer, the director of the play, the actor, the scene designer, and the others in the production. So the first in order should be imagination. If imagination plays such an important part in an actor's work, what can he do if he lacks it? He must develop it or leave the stage. It all depends on what kind of imagination you have. The kind that has initiative will work undeterringly whether you are awake or asleep. Then there will be a kind that lacks initiative, but is easily aroused. Observation of the nature of gifted people does disclose to us a way to control the emotion needed in a part. This way lies through the action of imagination, which to a far greater degree is subject to the effect of conscious will. We cannot directly act in our emotions, but we can prod our creative fantasy stirs up our emotion or affective memory, calling up from its secret depths, beyond the reach of consciousness, elements of already experienced emotions, and regroups them to correspond with the images which arise in us. That is why a creative fantasy is fundamental, absolutely necessary gift for an actor. There are various aspects of the life of the imagination. We can use our inner eye to see all sorts of visual images, living creatures, human faces, their features, landscapes, the material worlds of objects, settings, and so forth. With our inner ear, we can hear all sorts of melodies, voices, intonations, and so forth. We can feel things in imagination at the prompting of our sensation and emotion memory. These are actors of things seen and actors of things heard. The first are gifted with an especially fine inner vision, and the second with sensitive inner hearing. For the first type, to which I myself belong, the easiest way to create an imaginary life is with the help of visual images. For the second type, it is the image of a sound that helps. We can cherish all of these visual, audible, or other images. We can enjoy them passively, be the audience of our own dreams, or we can take an active part in those dreams. Every invention of the actor's imagination must be thoroughly worked out. It must be able to answer all the questions: where, why, when, where, why, how, that he asked himself when he was driving his inventive faculties on to make a more and more definite picture of a make-believe existence. The actor must feel the challenge physically as well as intellectually, because the imagination can reflexively affect our physical nature and make it act. Not a step should be taken on the stage without the cooperation of your imagination. Imitating. Imitation. In my admiration for a great actor, I attempted to imitate him. This has its good and its bad side. Copying a great example can train you in a good pattern, but it also checks your individual creativeness. I was only repeating what other person had experienced in his emotion. Since my imitation was purely external, I strained myself physically to produce feelings. Finally, I realized the simple truth that such to an approach apart can never produce the image of a character. Immobility. I had thought that immobility would allow me to devote all my energy and attention to the inner life of my role. As it turned out, this arbitrary immobility, which was not based on any inner necessity, gave rise to extreme tension and tautness of body and soul. This was quite understandable. Faced with this arbitrary forcing of nature, all feeling evaporated and was replaced by mechanical, cliche acting. The actor, who was obliged to remain seated through our entire performance, must of necessity assure his right to this mobility vis-a-vis an audience of thousands which have come to the theater to look at him. He can only justify remaining immobility by the inner activity of his spirit as dictated by the psychological pattern of his role. Improvisation. When teaching is oriented toward a practical and even interesting objective, it is easier to convince and influence students. Our point of departure in training actors is to have them learn by acting. Improvisations. One cannot go on teaching for years in a classroom and only at the end ask a student to act. In that space of time, he will have lost all creative faculty. Creativeness must never cease, the only question being the choice of material on which to base it. In our kind of acting, we make frequent use of improvisations. These kind of creativeness gives a freshness and an immediacy to performance. In the beginning, it is best to take subjects which are within your reach and not too overburdened with complicated psychology. But even the most primary kind of exercises must be carried to the point of mastery or virtuosity in execution. It is not the job of teachers to give instruction in how to create. We should only push students in the right direction, while training their taste requiring from them the observance of the laws of nature and the execution of their simplest exercises carried to the point of art, which is to say absolute truthfulness and technical perfection. Improvisations, which they work out themselves, are an excellent way to develop the imagination. Student actors who have been trained on improvisations later on find it is easy to use their imaginative fancy on a play where this is needed. In addition to the development of imagination, improvisations have another asset. While working on one, an actor naturally, without even perceiving it, learns the creative laws of organic nature and the methods of psychotechnique. Anything you do on the stage with coldness inside you will destroy you, because it will encourage in you the habit of automatic mechanical action without imagination. What can be more effective? Fan your ardor excite you inwardly than your imaginary fiction which has taken possession of you? A true artist is on fire with what he sees going on all around him. He is ardently interested in life. It becomes for him the object of his study and his passions. He tries to record the impressions he receives from the outside and, as an artist, stamps them on his heart. One cannot be cold when working in art. You have to possess a certain degree of inner warmth. Our mind can be set to work at any time, but it is not sufficient. We must have the ordained and direct cooperation in our emotions, desires, and all the other elements in our inner creative state. Just as yeast causes fermentation, so the sensing of the life of his role imparts a kind of inner warmth, the ebullition necessary to the actor. Artistic enthusiasm is a motive power in creativeness. Excited fascination, which accompanies enthusiasm, is a subtle critic, an indecisive inquirer, and the best guide into the depths of feeling which are unattainable to a conscious approach. The ability to fire his feelings, his will, and his mind, that is one of the qualities of the actor's talent, one of the principal objectives of his inner technique. Inner creative state on the stage. When an actor comes out of the stage before an audience, he may lose his self-possession from fright, embarrassment, or a sense of overwhelming responsibility. At that moment, he is incapable of speaking, listening, thinking, feeling, or even moving in an ordinary human way. He feels a nervous need to gratify the public, to show himself and hide his own state, which we call a mechanical theatrical mood. I clearly realized the harm inherent in the mechanical theatrical mood, so I began to search for some other spiritual and physical state while on the stage would be beneficial rather than harmful to the creative process. My observations taught me that in the creative state, a large role is played by the absence of a physical tension, the complete subordination of the body to the actor's will. Then I perceived that creativeness is first of all conditioned by the complete concentration of an actor's entire nature. So an actor turns his spiritual and physical creative instrument, his mind, will, and feelings combined to mobilize all of his inner elements. Out of this fusion of elements arises an important inner state, the inner creative mood. The habit of being daily on the stage and in the right creative state is what produces actors who are masters of their art. Inner images and hearing. As long as we are acting creatively, this film, an unbroken series of images, will be thrown on the screen of our inner vision, making vivid the circumstances among which we are moving. As to these inner images, it is correct to say we feel them inside of us. We possess the faculty to see things which are not there by making a mental picture of them. This inner stream of images is a great help to the actor in fixing his attention on the inner life of his part. The same process occurs when we are dealing with sounds. We hear imaginary noises with an inner ear. Inner motive forces. The first and most important master is feeling. Unfortunately, it is not tractable. Since you cannot begin your work unless your feelings happen to function on their own accord, it is necessary for you to have recourse to some other master. Who is it? The second master is the mind. Your mind can be a motive power in your creative process. Is there a third? If longings could put your creative apparatus to work and direct it spiritually, we have found our third master, will. Consequently, we have three impelling movers in our psychic life. Since these three forces form a triumvirate, inextricable, bound up together, what you say of one of those necessarily concerns the other two. This combined power is the utmost importance to us actors, and we should be gravely mistaken not to use it for our practical ends. Actors whose feelings overbalance their intellects will, naturally, in playing Romeo or Othello, emphasize the emotional side. Actors in whom the will is the most powerful attribute will play Macbeth or Brand and underscore ambition or fanaticism. The third type will subconsciously stress more than necessary the intellectual shadings of a part like Hamlet or Nathan the Wise. It is, however, necessary not to allow any one of the three elements to crush out either of the others and thereby upset the balance and necessary harmony. Our art recognizes all three types in their creative work. All three forces play leading parts. Inner tension. In our inner being, there are many superfluous tensions, but it is necessary to handle these inner tensions in a quite different way and not as we deal with plain muscles. Inner elements are like cobwebs in comparison with muscles which are more like cables. Separate cobwebs can easily be broken up, but if you plait them together into ropes, you will not be able to cut them with an axe. So be careful how you handle them in their incipient state. There are three stages in them too: tension, release, justification. In the first two stages, you seek out the severest inner tension, identify what causes it, and try to destroy it. In the third stage, you justify your inner state on the basis of appropriate given circumstances. Inner vision. Inner images are formed inside of us, in our imagination, our memories, and then, as we externalize them so that we may imagine them. Yet we look at these imagined objects, so to say, from the inside, not our external, but with our inner eyes. I may also say we turn to the phrase around, that although these imaginary objects and images are suggested to us by outside life, they nevertheless are first shaped within us, in our imagination and memory. It is only against the background of such explanations that we can accept the term inner vision. Inspiration. The most important difficulty is the abnormal circumstance of the actor's creative work. Other non-performing artists can create when they are under the influence of inspiration, but an actor himself is obliged to call forth his inspiration at the exact time he is advertised to come out and perform. The very best that can happen is to have an actor completely carried away by the play. Then, regardless of his own will, he lives the part. Subconsciously and with inspiration, no such genius exists. Therefore, our art teaches us first of all to create subconsciously, because that will best prepare the way for inspiration. Realism and even naturalism in the inner preparation for a part is essential, because it causes your subconscious to work and induces outbursts of inspiration. We need a creative subconscious, and the place to look for it above all is an stirring objective. When an actor is completely absorbed by some profoundly moving objective, so that he throws his whole being passionately into its execution, he reaches a state we call inspiration. If today you are in good form and are blessed with inspiration, forget about technique and abandon yourself to your feelings. But an actor should remember that inspirations appear only on holidays. Therefore, there must be some other well-prepared course for him to follow in which he can control. The easiest one for him to establish is the line of physical actions. Let him absorb all the technical means at his disposal until they become second nature. Let him adopt the given circumstances of his part so completely that they become his very own. Only then may his ultra-sensitive inspiration decide to emerge and take into her power and direction his creative initiative. Give up chasing phantom inspiration. Leave it to that miraculous fairy nature. Inspiration. Actors. There are individual moments when you suddenly and unexpectedly rise to great artistic heights, and thrill your audience. In such moments, you are creating according to your inspiration. But would you feel yourself capable enough to play 5 great acts of Othello with the same lift with which you accidentally played part of that one short scene? Such an undertaking would be far beyond the strength of a genius with extraordinary temperament. For our purposes, you must have a well worked out psychological technique, an enormous talent, and great physical and nervous reserves. You have not all these things any more than the inspiration. Actors who do not admit technique, they, as you did, rely entirely on inspiration. If you have inspiration does not turn up, neither nor they have anything with which to fill in the blank spaces. Almost as a rule, actors do not admit that laws, techniques, theories, much less a system, have any part in their work. Actors are overwhelmed by their genius, in quotation marks. The less gifted the actor, the greater his genius, and it doesn't allow him to make any conscious approach to his art. Such actors believe that any conscious factor in creativeness is only a nuance. They find it easier to be an actor by the grace of God. I shall not deny that there are times when, for unknown reasons, they are able to have an intuitive emotional hold on their parts, and they play reasonably well in a scene or even in a whole performance. But an actor cannot gamble his career on a few accidental successes. Accident is not art. You cannot build on it. Wow. Intonation and punctuation. Punctuation signs require special vocal intonations. Without these intonations, they do not fulfill their functions. In each of these intonations, there is a certain effect: the exclamation sign for sympathy, approval or protest. A colon demands attentive consideration for what follows, and so on. There is a great expressiveness in all these signs. The external word, by means of intonation, affects one's emotion, memory, feelings. Take the comma. It possesses a miraculous quality. Its curve causes listeners to wait patiently for the end of the unfinished sentence. Intonations and pauses on themselves possess the power to produce an emotional effect. And there we go. And wow, I'm more than halfway through the book. Let's go. I love it so far. It's great. Thank you for watching.